This week in comic books, we get the Godzilla Justice League King Kong story, and how sometimes adding a little levity to something serious doesn't really pan out that well. We also, in Marvel, we get another story with Gwen Stacy, or Ghost Spider, or Spider Gwen, or whatever her new nickname is that she complains about not having a nickname in. It's weird. And in Independence, a lot of good stuff in Independence, but I really want to talk to you about a possible crossover that may be happening in the Energon universe with G.I. Joe and the Transformers, something I saw with my little eye, and I want to share it with you as well. All that, a few more comic books, but I got to try to save some coffee because I'm 4 sales away from the partnership program, and I would rather do it that way than do a membership. So check it out.
Hey, what's going on, folks? This is your boy Pocan Joe to talk to you about Coffee Brand Coffee. We serve people that are tired of gimmicky advertising and branded companies that want to lecture you. At Coffee Brand Coffee, all we want to do is serve you freshly roasted coffee wherever you're at, whenever you want it. Consider Coffee Brand Coffee. Check us out, check our reviews out, and use promo code POCANJOE or the link down in the description to save yourself some money. Give me the opportunity to get you a delicious cup of coffee.
All right, weirdos, we're going to kick this off with World's Finest number 27. Right, this is continuing the fifth dimensional imp story, if you will, with Mixieplix and Batmite and all their little associates. The battle has kicked off and a champion has been found, and apparently it's going to be a little weird. Right? It's a fun, whimsical story of taking something kind of serious and really kind of having fun with it. And we're kind of playing with dimensions in this kind of weird way, as they kind of explain what 2-dimension is, 3-dimension, 4th, 5th, and even 6th dimension, as our being is a 6th-dimensional being and wants to be in charge of everything, our antagonist in the story. It's a fascinating story. It's really fun to read, and they really present it to you in a very fun, whimsical way, and I think that's why I've probably been enjoying the most and why I would actually recommend getting this comic book. It's really fun to read. Moving on, let's get to the Justice League King Kong Godzilla. I went with this cover here because, well, who doesn't like a gorilla with shiny greenness around him? And this is relevant to the story as well, as for some reason King Kong gets a Green Lantern ring. And the best thing he could come up with, although fair enough, it is a monkey or an ape or whatever, right? It is acts that you see in the movies. Other than that, it's a really great story. My issue with it is Guy Gardner, the Green Lantern, dies in this. Kills him, and everybody's like, he was a jerk anyway. Whatever. Yeah, they did that to a hero. And granted, he does have that personality. I get it. But I thought it was a little levity to something tragic that happened in it. Also, the worst possible way for a villain to die in this, Toy Master, who kicked all this off, by the way, he got stepped on by Godzilla. And they found the stone that made all this happen through Toy Master stuck in Godzilla's foot. And I was like, somebody didn't know how to quite end the story. That's the feeling I got from it. Like, it's just, really? That's how you're going to end it? That's kind of weird. And of course, the proposal to Lois Lane and Superman. So this is an Elseworld story, obviously. But still, like, couldn't come up with anything better. I didn't care for the ending. Thought it was a little cheesy. Continuing on with DC, we get Hellblazer, Dead in America. So anybody that's watched me do these reviews knows that I'm not really a fan of this story, but I wanted to chase it down to see what the conclusion would be. So what we've been doing here is we've been taking these kind of concepts of how somebody sees America. I'm not going to say everybody because that would be incorrect, but this particular writer, these are the lures and things and the spirit of America that they see, and they're doing it through the eyes of a foreigner, right? John Constantine traveling through America and kind of dealing with these in a more supernatural way. And it's just trash. It's so bad. And it's kind of weird how all the stories are kind of, I don't know, optically done in this. It's weird. Like in this one, we had something to do with the chupacabra, right? Fantastic myth here in America. We take it into the supernatural realm, right? It's a person, right? Ultimately, along with some of this other stuff, and the narration in it is horrible. There's one of the characters is Scottish, and if you've ever met somebody fresh from Scotland, it can be relatively hard to understand what they're saying sometimes. I don't mean that as a dig on them. They speak the way that they speak there, coming over here. But the problem is when you put it in a narration or as dialogue, it's like it starts getting a little annoying after a while. Cause it's like, what does that even mean? Right? I don't know. I'm going to keep chasing this down because I'm more fascinated with how all this wraps up as it's been taking its little digs as it goes through. So I'm kind of curious, just curiosity at this point. It's not a solid read for me in any way. Going into Marvel, we got Blood Hunt, right? And we got one of the tie-in stories. We got the Union Jack the Ripper. So this isn't really about Union Jack. I was waiting for that to happen in one of the little offshoots of the main storyline. This is actually about a constable in England who's kind of met Union Jack. Union Jack's a very rough, rugged, antisocial type hero, and he once worked with a guy by the name of Bulldog. Bulldog has been turned over into a vampire now. My romantic naiveness is probably going to say we're getting a new Bulldog, right? This constable. But for the most part, it's not important to the main storyline in any way, other than an introduction to a character who's just taking over for another character, really. Let's see here. We got Blood Hunt number 2, the main storyline. This is still solid. Again, it's not really about the characters themselves as much as it is about Blade's daughter and her significance into the story. This, right, is everything this isn't, and that's what makes this better, if you ask me. And even with that said, we're learning about the other heroes are starting to come together, formulating a plan to fight the big bad in this, who is Blade, who turned to the dark side. I know that's the wrong nerd. The wrong nerdum that's happening there, but it's what's happening in there. I really like the Bloodclave in this as their kind of elite vampire killing squad team. I think that's a good mesh up against just the Avengers or heroes in this case versus just having to deal with a bunch of zombie vampires that keep going through, as we mentioned before. I really like this. This is pretty solid main story. I'm not going to say it's the best I've ever read, but I will say it's a pretty solid read. And it's interesting to see how the characters interact with this kind of zombie motif, but using vampires to do it. As confusing as that is. Alright, next. Ghost Rider, Final Vengeance. We're still on Marvel. This is pretty solid. It's a fun read. For all you Red Hood fans out there, or the Hood fans, I should say. If you're a fan of it, you're going to enjoy this. What happens when he gets the spirit of vengeance? He goes around and starts killing crime bosses, but given the Hood and who he is, right? Of course, it's all for selfish, nefarious reasons to begin with, because he's not really a good person at the end of the day. So you kind of extract the things that make a hero. You extract that, but he's not really a bad guy either. He's just a guy doing the best he can. And it's selfish at the end of the day. It's a good example of that. So, being a few issues into this, where are we at? We're on issue 3. We're really kind of hashing out what does this look like as he teams up with vampires to clean up the mess after he spills the blood. Right? They like blood. It's what vampires do. A lot of vampires going on here lately. All right, next. Some of you Gwen Stacy fans out there may want to just skip through this part. I'm just going to go ahead and apologize. So we get Spider-Gwen, the Ghost Spider, Gwen Stacy. So this is, again, dealing with alternate worlds, right? We get a Gwen Stacy who becomes Spider-Gwen, who is Ghost Spider in this. And the running gag in this is she's doesn't have a superhero nickname in it. The TVA is involved because she's from another world, which means basically another timeline. and she's brought here, and she has to keep everything she does secret and private. And the running gag in it is everybody's got an AKA but me. But I'm sitting here thinking this character has more superhero nicknames than any other one I know. She's got at least 4. But how is the story? It's generic. Unfortunately, it's just kind of generic. A lot of, hey, remember this scene in a movie? Look, she's doing it with a school bus before a truck hits a school bus type of thing. It's kind of, I don't know. The jokes don't land very well. The one-liners that you would normally expect from a Spider-Man type character, they just didn't land very well. I will say there were some beautiful covers out there. The artwork's fantastic in it. But story-wise, it's kind of generic. All right, let's get into Independence, because that's why I'm going so fast today, because Independence have been killing it this week. And we're going to kick it off with Thundercats. So, if you're a fan of the Thundercats, you know at one point Lion-O and the whole Thundercat team decide to stay on this third Earth thing, right? They've met Mumra. The mutants are starting to come together. So our first arc is kind of done. This is our new home. This is what we got to do. This is how we got to live in it, and the whole 9 yards. And it's great, right? Again, some of the character choices on how they designed them, I'm still a little hung up on it. It just looks weird to me. But for the most part, story-wise, it's pretty good. I can't wait till they meet those little robot bear things. Remember the teddy bear robot thingies? Yeah, I can't wait till they meet them and maybe even introduce a few other characters. Our spy has been outed as the spy at this point. Snarf is kind of weird, more lizard thing than cat thing. It's kind of weird. But all in all, it's a solid story. I'm really enjoying it. Moving on to Rook Exodus. This is just solid. Like, the whole Geiger universe thing is just mind-blowing. I don't even want to review this for you, because if you haven't read it, you're missing out. There's no way to properly explain this story. This is a good example of something that I've heard one point. People on the planet are trying to look to the sky and escape, right? Because they were the poor people, that the worker class, right? And now they're trying to escape after all the rich people left. The whole animal motif thing, being wardens and having control over certain animals. We get introduced to the wolf people, person. Yeah, it's just good stuff. Fighting bears, and it's just solid read. But it kind of reminds me of something that was once told to me by somebody. And it was like, if you're going to look to the skies for an answer or for the future, you can't get upset when you trip over a curb. And that's what's going on in this story, right? Like, they want to get off the planet, they're looking towards the sky, but they have to deal with the environment that they're in order to escape. And I think that's a solid message, and it's a solid story. Highly recommend it. All right, last but not least, I hurried through this so I can get to this. So first off, Cobra Commander ended, right? Part of the Energon universe, not to be mixed up with the G.I. Joe story. And something happened in this. So first we learned how Cobra Commander started Cobra. Right, his team up with Destro and the whole 9 yards. So they're a team now. Cobra is established. Let's jump into it. But they're also going to add these other little stories where, like, the next one's going to have Destro in it. And Destro's in it, and we get a quick preview, and I saw this panel right here. So with that said, who is that character, and how is he related to Destro? Well, first off, the name that he keeps using in it, I'm not going to try to pronounce it, starts with a D, is a family relation to him. And this character looks suspiciously like this one. What do you think? Are we getting Mask? Is Mask going to be part of the Energon universe? Now, one can say, and I had to go look this up to verify this, Transformers, G.I. Joe, Hasbro property, shouldn't be a surprise. Mask, Kenner property, right? They looked a lot like the old Star Wars figures. But here's something interesting. In 1991, Kenner, right, was bought out by a company, right? And then in 2000, they shut down their main offices, but all their properties, meaning their copyrights, licensing, and all that, the main company held on to. And it was Hasbro. So they could inject those into this storyline, and I think that would be a great mixture. Because Mask has always been the kind of the G.I. Joe transformer, right? The vehicles transform into something else. The characters very diverse, very different skill sets. Everybody's kind of a focal expert in a certain area, so it was kind of always the great blending of the two. And I just think it would be a home run. Now, there have been talks, right, of this kind of happening underground through various forums, Reddit forums and stuff like that, that they should or possibly planning to do this. It was mostly geared towards the movies and stuff like that. I don't know, and I don't really care. I just want to see it happen. How awesome would that be? Comment down below. Let me know what you think. Again, I just came off of the Veterans Creative Festival out in Denver. I had a great time out there. To all the people in Team 7, it was great meeting you all. And I'll catch you all next week. Bye.